Still seen together. We are live. What's up, people? What's going on? It's your boy, John Darko Chapman, and I'm here with my man, Cre8ive. How you saying Cre8ive now?
That's it.
Robert
Cre8ive. That's what it is.
Say your government name. Say your government name.
Robert Waters. I'm gonna change it. I'm gonna change my name.
Mr. Harville, what's up, man? You have been a loyal listener, man, since we started this show. So I appreciate you, bro. Thank you.
Super appreciate it.
Vox 100%. FX, what's up, man? I'm a big follower of yours, bro. I've been following you for a long time. Thanks for tuning in. Miss, say Miss Josh, what's going on?
How's it going?
Keo Lancer Gaming, yo,
what's happening?
SMD, what's up, bro?
What's good? You guys,
I gotta get to New York and see you soon, bro. SMD for sure, man. We gotta do something. You gotta bring your butt back out here. But Philly. But yeah, man. So you know what I mean? New show, episode 5, keeping it going, man. How you been, brother?
Man, I'm doing all right, man. Been a hectic week, but it's been a good week. A lot of new business coming in this week, so it's been cool.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
I'm business going good, all that good stuff. I'm in the midst of buying a house right now, and it's been a pain. If y'all never bought a house before, especially your first time, they put you through the ringer, bro. This is technically my second time, but my first time, like business wise, doing something with the house and real estate and all. And it's just been like a whole different ball game, man. And the seller has been difficult, and the real estate agents back and forth, and it's been stressful
a lot. Oh my goodness. Yeah. What's up? We got Esquire, Black Tea Brown Sugar Network. Thank you for coming by. This guy right here is doing a lot in the city, so it's awesome to have you coming on. Say what's up,
Mr. Ray Alvarez.
We got shoot with Ray. What's happening, man?
Ray, we interviewed last week. For anybody who didn't tune in and didn't see that episode, goodness. If you get a chance, please check that out. We talked to him and his wife, and they were awesome. They were awesome guests, man.
Fantastic interview. Fantastic.
Yes, sir.
A lot of gems.
For sure. So anything current events, news, and any of that stuff before we get into it?
Man, apparently somebody slapped somebody else during during a award show of some sort. You know, I might have heard about something like that happening at some point.
Oh man! Usually I don't like to cover the celebrity gossip nonsense, but I guess it falls in our industry.
Yeah, it's almost impossible not to cover this one.
I know, right? Yo, you know what's really crazy? Yo, speaking of Devil for those, so I was literally shooting earlier that day. Someone who regularly shoots with Rob Sarabi, who came up from Pittsburgh to shoot with us and so forth.
Yeah,
and I was shooting me on shit. And we did a whole like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air thing. She like loves the show. I swear, I can't make this up. She did a whole bell. I'm gonna show you one of the pictures later. I got it on here. I should send it to my thing anyway. We did like a whole Bel-Air thing. She bought like the whole outfit and all this Fresh Prince of Bel-Air stuff and so forth. And then like we ended up hanging out a little bit later because she was new to Philly. And I was like, I'll get the cheesesteak and we'll hang out for a second and talk. Yeah. And we were talking about Will Smith and all that, and I was bringing up like him and Jada and all, and she was like, "There's no like Will Smith museum here." I was like, "You don't care about that nigga like that." Part of my real talk, like, I mean, like, Philly cool with Will Smith, but like, he don't live here. He's been here in years. Talk about Philly. He ain't even made a movie here, and God knows when. So it's like, I don't like hear about Will Smith. But so it's funny that like that all that, and I didn't even watch the house. Nobody watches the house.
No, man.
Like, literally the next day, I'm just seeing all this stuff, and I'm editing her pictures, and I'm just like, wow.
It was crazy. Like I just got on Facebook at some point, and somebody was like, "Did Will Smith just slap Chris Rock?" And then I just started seeing it like over and over. Did that really just happen? And then I saw the video and I'm like, are you serious? And it just went crazy after that. I love the memes. The memes were fantastic.
Yo, the internet is undefeated, bro.
The memes were the best thing on earth. I don't want to hear anybody philosophizing over all of the mess that happened. Like I just don't care. Like I've had to tell so many people, like, I don't care what you think about the underlying extraness. I don't care. Show me some memes. Give me the memes. That's all I care about. That's it.
It goes deep. It goes deep. We all, I think everybody can tell and know it was more.
It's deeper than that.
Just why he slapped or how it all happened. But my thing, this is all I'm saying to it. And I'm usually not the person to defend something like this, especially for a black man and everything else. But like in this particular situation, like, yeah, he should have been like press charges or something. I mean, if Chris Rock don't want to press charges, that's cool, whatever. But the fact, like, put it like this: if it was reversed and it was because Amy Schumer was the host, so if Chris Rock didn't do the joke and Amy Schumer did the joke and he slapped Amy Schumer, he wouldn't have made it off the stage.
Nah,
so
that'd have been a whole different thing.
And I was like, so if you kind of put it in context and really map it out, I was like, bro, like you should have got you should have at least got detained. And then Chris Rock made the decision to like whether I want to press charges or not or whatever, as any situation would happen in real life. But you know, you Will Smith, so
Will
smack
Smith
a nigga and get
celebrity.
war.
That's what it is, man. They had a kerfuffle, and that's it's over now. That's how I see it. That's it.
They just say the N-word like it was like
it's one of them moments.
It
was one of them moments.
Yo, wild.
I need me a Riley pad on my thing.
For real.
But you know, it is what it is.
Anyway, so I guess let's get to the show. We got a special guest and all that good stuff. So let's get to it. Roll the intro.
All right. Hope we get to the clip.
All right, and without further ado, let's bring on our special guest,
Omari Souza.
Mr. Omari Souza. I didn't know if it was Souza, how to pronounce it, but now I just found that.
Souza, yeah. He is a college professor, a very accomplished photographer who's kind of moved on to doing some other things. He's a graphic design researcher by trade. He does a lot of work. So he's a really interesting guy. He runs a lot of conferences in the graphic designs in the design space. So he's just a really interesting guy. So I figured let's welcome.
I'm not gonna lie, that's probably like the dopest little montage that I've ever been a part of. So just want to thank you for that.
Appreciate it. Shout out to my boy Alex Woods. He actually made that track a long time ago, and I don't even think he's seen the show or anything yet. So we gotta bring him on.
That'd be dope.
What you got in the glass, man?
What is that?
What you sipping on? What you got in the glass?
This is I'm trying the new. What's the vodka? Sweet tea, you ever tried it? It's all right.
Vodka and sweet tea.
It's a vodka sweet tea. Some new, I bring out all these new fruity drinks and stuff. So I was like, I'll figure I'd try it. It's pretty good. I like it.
I thought that was bourbon for a second. I was jealous.
I usually do bourbon. I'm usually a whiskey guy. I'm whiskey all day, but I'm trying to be a little lighter today.
Nice. So yeah, tell us about you, what you do a little bit. Give us the intro.
I'm a New York native. I grew up in the Bronx, first generation American of Jamaican descent. I am a graphic design researcher. So I do a lot of design for social good and innovation. It's basically, for those who are unfamiliar with what that term means, I usually try to figure out how things that we make can be utilized for social good. I'm also the founder and lead organizer for a conference called the State of Black Design. We just had our third event, our third conference this last March. Well, yeah, we're still in March. The first weekend of March, it was headlined by Nikki Giovanni, Jelani Cobb, Lacey Jordan, and Sekou Cook. Other than that, I'm a dad. kickbox enthusiast, and comic book anime nerd.
Nice.
Okay, we won't get to the kickboxing and anime in a little bit. I think I'm gonna let you slip on that one, guy. But tell me a little bit. I'm curious now, man, because Rob sent me kind of like at the last point, because first when he had told me about you, he's mainly bigging up on like graphic design and everything that you do at the university and as a professor and so forth. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's what's up. And then he sent me some other link, and I'm like, what is this? And he was like, oh, he did wedding photography. I was like, word? Okay. So he's looking at that stuff. So break down a little bit, just how do you go from wedding photography to graphic design to university professor?
You ever watched In Living Color?
That I have.
Yeah.
You remember them old skits about Jamaicans that they always had like a million jobs?
Facts. That ain't a skit. That's facts. That's reality.
That's my reality. That's my reality.
You know what I'm saying, man? We're gonna make sure we got every job and what's needed, bro.
Pretty much. Pretty much. I mean, I've always. I mean, being a Jamaican, there's always coming from a Jamaican family, first generation American immigrant family in general. They always have a level of grind to them. People that are usually coming to the United States are usually coming for opportunity. So they arrive on the soil like with the spirit of, we need to plant seeds and harvest. But being from a Caribbean family that had that in them and growing up in a city like New York, where it was just a very hustle city. Like there were always 8 million other people trying to do the exact same thing you were trying to do. So I needed to find a way to stand out and grind. I haven't seen these photos in years.
What happens? There's a story for us behind this one, right? This is the one in Atlanta, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It is. It's the gentleman in the photos, a gospel singer and pastor now, Jeffrey Golden. He
sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
He's pretty famous. Like he's
pretty talented as well. He was kind enough to allow Robert and I to do their engagement session. So Robert and I rented a car, brought a couple friends with us to like style them, do the makeup. I don't even want to guess how much the equipment that we had in the car was worth. But like we hopped out the car to do a couple shots. We shot this and maybe like 2 other shots and then walked around our car, and like somebody had broken in and stolen all of our gear. What? Broken into their car, stole his passport, cash, clothes that he had in his car. Like when I say like,
yeah,
it
was crazy. Like, and the wild thing is like, I don't even know how they found us. It must have been something where they were trying to follow us around while we were there. They saw us somewhere. I don't get it. It was the craziest experience I ever had.
How long ago was this?
This was 3 years ago. This is 2018.
That's
that's 4 years ago.
I've been very fortunate, knock on wood and crosses, whatever. Like I've not had any equipment stolen. Oh, here's a crazy. I'll try and keep this short. I had one time. So I one studio that I owned at the time, I literally used to live underneath the studio. And it was one of those times it's coming home tired as heck, whatever, unloading and blah, 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 blah. And I literally left one of my Pelican cases that had a bunch of lenses and stuff in it, cinema lenses and all that, left it like literally outside of the house in the front. And this wasn't like the greatest neighborhood that my studio was in. You know how it is. You run one of the big warehouse studio type joints, and not a great neighborhood, so it was a lot cheaper and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it was gone. And I was like, freaking out and all this other stuff. And there's a bunch of people in and out of the studio. So I don't know who did what and who, accusing everybody and all that stuff. And just out of nowhere, a couple of days later, this extremely nice guy that just lived in the area. I don't even know how I ended up getting in contact. Somebody called him and was like, yo, call him real quick. And I think he has your case. And just was the nicest guy and was like, yeah, I found your case, man. It was sitting out there. So I just took it and held it and just started reaching out and seeing who had it in the area. And, I ended up getting it back. And he was super nice about it and everything else. And extremely lucky because I've heard so many stories, man. I've had friends who've had stuff stolen on airplanes. I have friends who had red cameras, $100,000 worth of equipment and everything else stolen from airports and foreign countries and music video, especially music video shoots. I hate to say, and all kinds of stuff, man. So,
the folks that stole from us were just it was straight disrespectful. Like we'd gone out to eat. My homegirl Kelly had like this chicken sandwich that we got from like some spot in Atlanta. They bit her sandwich, and I guess they didn't like it. She threw it on the floor. They left everybody's door open. When I say it was a straight violation. Like you guys just started the Smith situation and how like he went on stage and just did what he did. I think about that now because at the moment I was so angry. I was standing next to Robert's brother, and he stole Robert brother's laptop out of his car as well. So it was like 3 cars that got hit. Yep. I turned off all my debit cards because I was like, man, they got my wallet too. And then I got a ping that they tried to like use my debit card at a GameStop, right around the corner. So I look at Rob's brother. I was like, yo, you got your keys? Let's roll. And we're at the GameStop, like getting in people's faces. And I'm like, this could have gone so wrong. It's like,
you know what's crazy? I've seen like some of the most like smallest, whatever, not tough dudes, you know what I'm saying? Whatever. Kind of just, you steal our equipment.
Bro. Yeah, oh my gosh.
We'll get for real. I don't care who you are. What's up, Josh Mills? Shout out, man. The
thing, the Josh, man, what's happening? The thing about it that was so bad was how unhelpful the police were. Like just the most unhelpful, it was just like, just give it up. That stuff's gone. Nothing we can do about it. It just felt so unhelpful. So yeah, that was the worst.
When I say so y'all had like a real Atlanta moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
a real Atlanta. Like y'all was on the show.
Oh,
that's funny.
They got my laptop. They got like
they got my strobes.
They got your strobes. They got Kelly's entire makeup kit. Like I don't even know what they wanted the makeup for, but they took the whole makeup kit. They got a bite out of her chicken sandwich.
They got Sharon some clothing from Sharon too, didn't they?
They got some clothing from Sharon. They took Jeffrey's passport.
Was this after you finished shooting the wedding, or this was still?
We just started.
Go ahead.
So how did y'all get through it? What happened?
They didn't take our cameras because we had those with us, so we could still shoot.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? So we still finished the shoot, but it was crazy the way it happened. Like there's a big old house, and we went around the house, and when we came back around the house, that's when the stuff was gone. And we had gone over across the road to go to shoot some other thing, and I was like, oh, let me go get my strobe. So I went to the car to get my strobe, opened it up, and it was just they weren't there. And I was like, maybe I left them at Omari's mom's house. And you're in the middle of a shoot. I wasn't even thinking about it. And then Sharon, I don't remember Sharon or Kelly, but one of them was like, yo, somebody they got us for all our stuff. That was like, geez, man.
And I heard like the tires peel off. It was like a pickup truck or something. Like I just heard tires peel off. I was like, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I was like, yo, why are they driving like this in a museum parking lot?
Right.
That sounds like a setup a little bit. Like followed you enough. They was ready with like the pickup truck, especially like because it sounds like it was in an enclosed area, right?
Yep. Yeah, it was like a cul-de-sac type of joint. Like it was back like a long driveway back to a museum, and there was like a little house off to the side, like a really nice like old house that was off to the side of it. Wow. It was crazy. Like that's how we felt. Like somebody obviously was watching us at some point. Like they targeted us. They knew that we had our stuff somehow. Wow. Yeah, that's really no idea.
I can't say I ain't heard it before, bro. But hey, y'all still here. We're still doing the thing. So that's what's up. So kind of roundabout going back back to the topic. So Amar, if you could tell us a little bit, just so how do we still, what was the journey that led us from photography to graphic design? Is I 100% get that. It sounds like you were doing a little bit of the midst of all of them, while in the midst of while you were coming up, and completely understand that many photographers tend to be jackets of all trades and so forth. Do a little bit of everything. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. Just tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that and where you're at now.
So when I was shooting, the majority of my business was in Ohio, and I took a teaching position in Pittsburgh where I met Robert, and it was really just me moving from one city to the next, and then trying to start over completely. And I felt like I had a little bit of my energy left, because realistically, like starting a business all over again, getting people to be familiar with you, to trust you in the work that you do, enough that they can like part with some of their money, and like building relationships with other people that can then recommend you for stuff. Like all of that takes so much energy, and you have to be so available for people. So moving from Cleveland to Pittsburgh, for me, it was just one of those situations where I felt like my battery was already on low, because I'd been doing it for so long in Cleveland, and I had gotten so accustomed to not having to do that much in terms of establishing connections, because people in Cleveland knew the quality of the work that I produced. And then I ultimately got the job offer in Texas, and I was just like, I just don't have it anymore. I don't have the interest in networking. I don't have the interest in these coffee meets for new clients, or to build relationships with planners and things of that nature. I just didn't have the patience anymore for the high paced nature of weddings or the emotions. And I was just like, I'm just gonna go to Texas and start over. I'm gonna find something else, and I'm not gonna worry about it. Sold all my gear, and just the gear I had left, post theft, and
So this is all around that time.
all around the same time. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was like, man, I could go and buy all these lenses back and do all of this other stuff. Then I was just like, fuck it. No, I'm just gonna do something else. Maybe this was a sign for me to start a new journey.
Yeah.
I understand that. So from your new journey and where you're at now, tell us a little bit about how it is as a professor and what you teach, and just kind of the whole gambit of that.
So I teach basically like a number of different things. My time here, I taught typography, typography 1, foundations design. The things I'm most intrigued by are like design research classes and design for experience. So design for experience courses, at least the way that I teach them, are usually how do you leverage design services or artifacts in order to instill a particular behavior. So for example, it could be, how can we design a website that will allow people to hover around a particular page a little bit longer to promote a certain type of attention? Or how do we design an experience that will encourage people to use the staircase instead of an escalator, or things of that nature? But finding interesting strategic applications for design outside of, I'm going to make this dope ass flyer, and once I make this flyer, people are going to come to my party or my event or whatever the case may be.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, that now that you're saying that is very interesting. Going back to when I was in college and went to Temple University, my major was film and all. I studied film degree and all that. But especially back then, even in the communications courses, because like I even though I was a film major, you kind of divvy dabby back and forth, kind of how it goes almost every school when it comes to film majors and communications and all that. And I think I had maybe the entire time of college, and keep in mind, I went to school 2000, graduated 2004. Technically 2005, because I got held back and had to pay money, whatever. But I think I maybe had like in 4 years 5 courses in marketing.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild to how much that's changed now.
Yeah.
To where you look at any student curriculum and so forth from kind of colleges across the board, and like, you know, and just literally in business itself, and the reality of it is that it's majority marketing.
Yeah.
You know, if you're doing it right, you should only be spending what they say, like 20% of your time actually shooting or whatever it is that you're doing in any creative field in art and so forth, and the rest of the time marketing. You know, I mean, granted, it can differ a little bit depending on fields and so forth, but it's very interesting how much that's changed over the years because of the internet and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, not just the marketing, but the client management. And Rob and I, like, when I lived in Pittsburgh, we would go on like these road trips to do a whole bunch of other stuff. Like a number of these slides, Rob and I were talking about doing like these photo walks and photo workshops, and we would like tour.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not tour, but like we went to Columbus sometime from Pittsburgh, and basically whenever we would do these things, we'd end up having like these long conversations. And I would just like let him know like some of my thought processes around like running a business and everything else, and telling him that I felt like everything was relationship based. You know, you establish relationships with clients, you maintain those relationships, and then those clients ultimately end up recommending business to you. But those clients also end up becoming friends long term. You have collaborators that you collaborate with, you pour into those relationships, you maintain those relationships. You guys also end up sharing business back and forth. But you end up finding out if you're doing like 30 weddings a year and you're trying to maintain relationships with those 30 people, and then the people that they recommend, and then the people that they recommend, and then the planners that you meet along the way, especially for an introvert like myself, you just end up feeling so stretched thin. And honestly, I feel like once I get stretched to a certain point, I'm just like, I snap back and I'm like, all right, I need to step away for a bit. And that's what I did with photography. I just needed to step away.
Gotcha.
And it's interesting, like as an introvert, you know, like it was always impressive to me how well you did that. Like the thing that is really interesting about building those relationships is kind of the soft connections that you make with people. So, you know, people think relationship building is all about having these in-depth connections and in-depth interactions with people on a regular basis. And what I found that you did really well is just being able to keep in contact with people without it being such an overwhelming, you know, need for a relationship. It was just like a very soft relationship that you had, a connection that you had. You know, just I'm going to send you these funny things every now and again, or you know, we're just gonna talk about what's going on, and it's just not so, you know, not so deep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't need to be, and I think that really benefited you as a photographer and as a businessman. Overall,
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the advice I always give to people when they're attempting to build relationships is don't root them in transaction. You know, like if you measure them in terms of like, I'm going to build this relationship because they can get this from this person, or I'm not going to maintain this relationship because this person didn't net me a certain amount of money. People can sense that. But if you're actually going to build genuine relationships, a lot of times they're just like plants. You just need to water them a little bit sometimes. So maybe it's just a matter of like Robert said, like, hey, I know you find this funny. This came across my feed. I'm gonna send this to you. Or I know you were interested in partaking in this type of career. I just got some additional resources that might be able to help you do that. Or I just got a connection I think would be really interesting for you to make. People just want to feel poured into from time to time. And it's really important that you do that for the people that you connect with and you want to build with. Yeah.
100% agree. I'm curious. So you, specifically because we have a professor on, and a little bit about school, because especially with creatives, one thing I see a lot is that, you know, people tend to, there's a lot of up and down about schooling for creatives, depending on certain fields, right? So for instance, if we say like, you know, CGI work, somebody wants to get into video gaming, someone wants to get into Hollywood and doing any type of computer animation, CGI work. We say go to college, no problem, that makes sense, blah 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 blah. That's what they do, right? But then we get into fields of photography, graphic design, certain things and so forth, and illustration even. Tends to get a little fashion design, things like that. Tends to get a little funky, textiles, whatever, to how people measure or view college, right? And you'll even see professionals go college mileage, and then other people, swear by it, and so on and so forth. So, what is your take on that, and especially teaching now, and coming from freelance and and running your own business to being a professor and so forth? How do you feel that weighs in scope of things in this day and
Honestly,
age, especially?
yeah, I think it all depends on what you want. I think I've always been an advocate of state universities. I work for a state university. I think private colleges and universities is where the value becomes questionable. Like whenever universities begin to charge $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year for students to attend for a career where you may only make $40,000 or $50,000 a year, I think that's a bit unfair. But I think there is a lot that you can leverage from going to school if you consider it a business investment. A lot of times, whenever you're in a program, if you're investing in the relationships you have there, the people that you meet can ultimately end up being the people that share opportunities with you if you're investing in the relationships the right way. Sometimes professors open doors for you as well if you invest in those relationships too. If you go the route that I did, getting like the necessary graduate degree to teach at academia, in a lot of ways, that ends up being its own security blanket for a lot of creatives, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur, it's very feast or famine. You may have 1 month or 1 week where you feel like I am rich, and then for the rest of the year, it may be I am starving. I am desperate. But being a professor, depending on the university you work for, your teaching and workload can be very minimal, and the work that you do in your field could be considered the research that's necessary to help you get tenure. So, for example, I teach a 2-3 load at my current university, and what that means is 2 classes one semester, 3 classes the other. Out of my 2-3 load, each class is 5 hours a week. So one semester I may be actually teaching only 10 hours a week. The following semester I may be teaching 15. The rest of that week is mine. Outside of faculty meetings I may have to have once a month. It's mine to do what I want to do within my field. I use that to write, publish, speak at conferences, do speaking engagements, or freelance. So if I have entrepreneurship itches and other things that I want to do for myself, I have all the time in the world to do that without having to be stuck behind somebody else's desk. Attempting to make that happen. So do I feel like college is completely necessary? No, not for everybody. But do I think there are some ways that it can be advantageous? Completely. It just depends on what your purpose is. And I think before anybody makes the decision to go or not to go, they need to figure that out first and foremost.
I agree. Josh, real quick, said a couple good things real quick, and one I pointed out too. Everybody kind of has been liking your work, bro. Both old and new, old and current, I should say. And one thing I'm noticing, and Josh pointed out, I really like his use of hard shadows in the compositions. I agree. You have a very design base, even in your regular photos I'm seeing, and even your wedding photos I saw. Everything has a very architecture, what's the word I'm looking for? Interior design kind of feel to them. Very, very unique, man. I like that. Definitely not something I do enough. I do, and putting composition together and everything, however I want the composition to look and so forth. But the actual where everything is going to be based on 3.5 lateral lines. What I mean? I'm not good at that, but I can see you very much pay attention to that. As well as just the way the shadows and getting the harsh lines. That's impressive, man.
Yeah, That's one of the things that I've always been impressed by in his work is his use of shadows in particular. Like he's in the way that he teaches it, because I've, we've had a lot of discussions about, kind of how he goes about getting what he's looking for. And that's one thing that, I've always felt like I've been missing in, my work is like the architectural lines, the leading lines, the using the shadows the way he does. It's always been impressive to me.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, before I gave up shooting, I was really, the last few years that I was shooting consistently, I became obsessed with like street photography. Like photographers like Henry Cartier-Bresson, who's an old French photographer, but would walk through streets and just capture like these amazing compositions without setup. And it was really just people, arrangements, architecture, and lighting, natural lighting. And for me, the way that they composed, the way that he set shots up, I just thought was genius. I was nowhere near as good as he was, but while I was shooting, that was one of the things that I really chose to focus on.
Yeah, man, I like.
Let me tell us about. Tell me about that, because that's one thing that I feel like you do. That's really interesting. Is you approach your work from the perspective of looking at other people's work, like other famous photographers. You use that influence in a way that I don't necessarily see people talk about or use. Like, how do you go about, like, because I think it's because a lot of it because you're a researcher.
Mm-hmm.
How do those things kind of merge together and play together with how you end up designing and producing your work?
Yeah, I mean, I would end up finding photographers that I admired, whether it was through hashtags on Instagram or photographers that other people that I knew and respected also looked up to. And in many ways, I would ask them for their time, or sometimes I would travel to the city that they were in just to grab coffee with them. And a lot of the conversations I would ask would be about their philosophy. Like there's a photographer in DC, Baltimore area, named Cre8ive, amazing photographer. And Cre8ive Bob, also in the DC area. Both of these photographers are like God tier level photographers, in my opinion. And I've had between the two of them, several conversations where it's just, who are you looking at for inspiration? What are you doing to do self-improvement? What is your philosophy behind shooting? How are you setting up your shots? So forth and so forth and so forth. And it was less about the gear that they were using or anything else, and more so trying to understand the thought process behind how they were making what they were making. And I felt, for me, the philosophy and the rationale behind it, is what motivated me. It's literally like being able to find your favorite music producer and go with them to a record store and watch them pick up, music that they're going to sample, and just asking them, why are you interested in this? What is it about this genre that does something for you? What are you listening for specifically when you pick these things up? And then how can I also have that same ear? So for me, being lucky enough to have a number of people that were willing to sit with me and like share thoughts with me, and then trying to pick pieces that I felt could work for me with my style and my aesthetic, it was the journey that I was on. There were also local photographers as well. Cameron Kahn in Cleveland.
That name sounds familiar.
She's dope. She did a lot of portrait and lifestyle work, and her work was always clean. Her colors were always amazing. In Pittsburgh, there was Mecca Gamble. She's now in Atlanta. Same thing, always clean. I've second shot for both of them, and also tried to pick their brains as well. And that's always been my motivation. how are you doing what you're doing, and why?
I agree, man. I say all the time, man, the best art is still.
Yeah.
Always, man.
Yeah.
Down to Andy Warhol and everybody else, bro. Like you know, we're always going to be a little bit of slaves to our influence, no matter what. You know what I mean? Like you know, especially at this point in stage in life and
Yeah.
generation and whatever you want to call it that we're in. Like, there's nothing new under the sun. Come on, like
Yeah.
everybody at this point, a little bit of everything's been done. You're doing some rendition of something. It's funny. I just posted something that they showed from one of the old episodes of which is an amazing series that I think you all should watch, especially if you're into music. I used to run music studios, so I very much know a little bit about it. Dave Grohl did like a series on HBO where he went to like a lot of the older kind of ending on their last note, so to speak, famous recording studios literally around the country. He went to like Electric Lady Studios. He would stop by Philly and like Fatboy and Turtle Studios and LA and 2-1 and a lot of the other famous recording studios around the world. And just, you know, he would talk, interview with people. And he did this one interview with Pharrell, and he explained how he was like, dude, I'm not a good drummer. He's like, I'm not a good drummer at all. He was like, he's like, the only reason the drumming worked was because I stole. And he was like, he was very specific. He was like, he stole from the Gap Band, a couple other 70s all disco stuff. And he was like, dude, that whole Nirvana record, he was like, everything you heard, it was that double tap, that, you know. And he was saying, and then the video, so they did like a replay of some of the Gap Band stuff and showed how that old school sound that you hear in a lot of how they start off their songs. And then they play like Smells Like Teen Spirit, and it was like, holy shit. And Pharrell was just like, what? And like, yo, it's just real, man. Like, yo, I think everyone stills a little bit. You should still, in my opinion. I teach still and coach a lot of young kids coming up wanting to do photography, film, and all that kind of stuff. And you know, they all want to be good, they all want to stuff, and they always have this like plight of like, I want to be original, and I'll say, you want to be original, you want to be good? Sure, still. Go look at whoever's your favorite, whatever, and start reverse engineering.
Yep.
Whatever. Yeah, I was you know, one of the biggest things I always tell kids, like, go, you know what? Okay, I said, go to Barnes and Noble, whatever bookstores left, so on and so forth out here, and go to the magazine section and buy a bunch of magazines. Take it back, find your favorite pictures, rip them out, put them on your wall, whatever, in front of your laptop, whatever you're working with, and just start reverse engineering how they did those pictures. And start and I specifically say this a lot. I was like, stop, you know, running out, grabbing whatever girl wants to shoot, model, friend, whatever, however you're doing your thing and subject, especially if you're doing fashion stuff or whatever. It's more like we focus on subject, you know, subject photography, whatever, portrait, yada yada. And I said, stop just shooting them. Go pick out pictures you actually, I wish I could do that, and recreate those pictures step by step and figure out how the F they did it.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, man, it's everything.
I literally just had a young lady at my studio saying the exact same thing to her. Like, just steal. Like,
there's a workshop I attended in Cleveland, 2 separate workshops. One was by a photographer named Sam Hurd, and the another was a couple, the Linzacks, Ted and Rachel Linzack. The Linzack Workshop was a 3-day workshop, and they were showcasing their process for inspiration. And one thing they did that I thought was amazing, they would find these movies by directors that were known for amazing cinematography, and they would watch the movie and pause it on things that they thought were beautiful compositions, and they would screenshot it and put it in a document folder. And then later, after they watched the movie, try to break it down, like, how did they frame this? And literally, I remember in the conversation I was asking, he was like, yeah, we also then, you know, watched the behind the scenes. We started looking at the gear that they used and how they framed it, you know, yada, 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 yada. And then we recreated our own photography. And it was utterly amazing. Sam Hurd took it a step further and would literally use film equipment in his photography. So if something needed to have a softer look, he would look and see what cinematographers were using when they were shooting, and then he would bring that into his still frame photography. And in both cases, the work that they produced felt so unique because everybody else was looking at the same source material and trying to somehow stand out.
Very much so. And then now we're in my department.
So like for me, filmmaking,
it's funny. I agree. I'm sorry.
Feel inspiration, but make sure you're not filming the same inspiration everybody else does, or else you're not going to be original. You have to find something else that's unique. So kind of throw that in.
Agreed. I'll say, especially for film, funny. There's a site. Oh gosh, I was just looking at that site. Forget the name of it. It's always when you're trying to show somebody something. I can't even tell y'all the name on top of my head. I'll try and find it and we'll put it in the comments or something in the back.
I think we just lost him. We gotta make sure he has the link.
Well, while we're bringing him back, there's actually a site, and all this site does is it breaks down shot by shot of pretty much like all whatever's like the biggest movies coming out, not just like the Hollywood blockbuster stuff, but like indie films, whatever's a good film, shot well, whatever. And they break down scene by scene. They explain each scene. They explain how it was shot. They explain what camera was used. They explain every makeup, everything. They break it all down. It's a whole website now. I forget what it's called.
There's a good YouTube channel like that.
Every frame of painting.
Yeah, they have a channel.
Well, every frame of painting was really that's one of them.
Yeah,
and there's another one. It's called like cinema something. I
think that's it. But they have a site too, and they break down frame by frame now. And you can go on and look up any film, whatever, and they'll pull up and show you everything that was used for it and everything. So yeah, it's very, very important, and especially with film, and how it translates over to photography. And I'm one of the weird cases with that, where I've always been in film and video, and I didn't touch photography for years. And in the film department, we kind of made fun of photographers a little bit back in the day. Because we always looked at photographers and like, oh yeah, that's cute. You got a little camera. Like, you see all this shit? That's what it takes to make a movie. You know what I mean? So we always looked down, and I had not the respect that I should have had for photography until I got more into photography and realized that it is very different. Very, very different. How you work with strobe lighting and just everything is so much different than video. And it took me a long time to get good. Longer than necessarily someone who would have just started cold and humble and just would have picked it up. Probably picked it up faster than I did. And I could cut a lot of corners because I had some graphic background, whatever. But, it took me a long time to get good as a photographer because I was just under this film and, and all this other kind of stuff. But knowing both, and one thing I noticed that has made me stand out sometimes, got me some opportunities and teaching and all kinds of stuff from other people, is the fact that because I come from a film background, I tend to understand color grading and color theory better than most photographers. I mean, most photographers just can't grasp the color theory as well as they think they do sometimes. And it gets deep. I always look at color theory and how deep that goes, the same as engineering, music engineering, how deep audio and music theory goes. And it's kind of a parallel to one another. One's audio, one's visual. But what it takes to become a good engineer and understanding music theory is based on training your ear and practice and all these other things and so forth, as well as understanding the theory and putting the theory with the art, the science of the art, so to speak. Is very much the same with color theory. And training your eye and what to see and so forth, and then understanding the theory of it and blah blah blah. So it's a found respect I think everyone should have. Shout out to Jay Harville again, because I know he's been shooting with film like crazy right now, trying to get good at it and understanding it, and that is a very good thing. And I think more photographers need to do it. And I know with digital, and especially where we're at with cameras now, it's made it a lot easier. Let's just be real. Mirrorless cameras and so forth. It's so much easier to shoot now compared to before. But I applaud everyone and encourage everyone to at least try film at least once in your life, so you can understand how celluloid works, the difference of it, and the importance. Because once you kind of understand and get a hold of celluloid and get the feel for it and really start playing with it and even editing with it, and then you come back over to digital, you'll start understanding why people do what they do in editing to get the digital to look like film. Because I think that's one of the biggest things that people don't understand. Like film of digital was shunned in Hollywood for a long time.
Yep.
I remember one of the first films that was like Hollywood films that was really shot on digital was Robert Rodriguez, and it was the sequel to Desperado. The part two that everybody, it was a terrible movie. Where Johnny Depp was in it. It was horrible. But it was shot completely on digital. And it was like a whole big thing because people were like, oh, you're shooting in digital, and oh, this is, it looks different and blah, 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 blah. And move forward, everyone shoots digital now, right? Let alone the first couple Star Wars, the prequels, and all that was like the beginning of digital crossing over. And I remember for the longest time, even back when I was in school, it was like a no for professional work to do video, no matter how you were working in video, because it just wasn't there. And it's funny because what people don't understand is, to this day, this is the last I'll say, I'm kind of ranting, but video still isn't what it should be to compete with celluloid. This is the part that people don't understand. The only reason video can compete with celluloid now,
it's cheaper.
No, is video still looks exactly the same as it did back in freaking early 2000, 1999. It's still shitty. It still looks like video. It's just we understood and figured out some loopholes around, for instance, shooting in log format, flat, and all this other stuff to be able to bring the color ratio and everything back over to celluloid. That's why it looks the way it was. That's why you got to do all this extra stuff when you shoot in video to get it in post to look like film.
Like it did in film. Yep.
Yeah. Because if you shot normal in video, I don't give a damn what kind of camera you're using. It still will look like shitty video.
Yeah. Because
right?
It's
not until you do all this extra stuff.
Right.
So, I think it's just so important now. I try and encourage it so much, and sometimes it falls on flat ears, or I'll get people like, yeah, and then they'll never do it because they're like, oh shit, this is work. But like, if you can really do it, you can really practice, you can really get a hang of it, man, you will become such a better photographer. You have no idea. Because it still is based back to film, no matter how you start. If you look at any accomplished photographer, it still falls back to film on some level, whether it's the color grading or whatever. And I'll shut up. That's my bad.
So to segue, tell us about some of the conferences that you've been doing and how that's, how your journey has influenced you and taking you into that realm, meeting with all these designers, bringing people together, and developing these conferences that you've been doing.
Yeah. So the conference was kind of like an accident, to be completely honest. I was working on a workshop series. I was trying to get, or a lecture series. I was trying to get a number of people that I knew to come in and speak to my students, and give them tricks of the trade. The same year the George Floyd incident happened. There was a number of students in my department that, when you're the sole Black faculty, they come to you and start asking questions and come to you and start telling you what they want to do and like all of this other stuff. And I realized rather than the workshop, what would have been a little bit more impactful was making room for conversation. Even faculty members were telling me that they wanted to do something. So all of my friends that I contacted about doing workshops, I ended up asking them how would they feel about me turning the ship to a different destination, and asked if they'd be down for a workshop discussion. Well, not a workshop, but like just an open discussion about issues pertaining to the intersection of race and practice, and they were all down. So at a time where conferences, whether they be design conference or photography conferences, didn't really feature people of color, oftentimes saying that there weren't enough practitioners of quality to feature, I got 13 Black creative and put them on a virtual stage and promoted it in the most bare bones way on Eventbrite. My thought process was at most I'd have 100 people. If I was really lucky, I'd have 250 people. Ended up getting 4,000 people to register for the event.
Wow.
Wow.
And this was, I think I threw this together in like 3 weeks. So it was like, oh shit, people are actually watching. So 4,000 people registered roughly. I think it was like 3,615 to be specific, and like 2,500 people watched it live, and then 5,000 people ended up watching the first one. And then for me,
No, I'm sorry. Was this during pandemic or?
I don't think so. No. I can't remember per se. It must have been. It was. Yeah. So 4,000 people watched live. It was during the pandemic. People were in the streets protesting due to the George Floyd murder. It was during COVID.
Yeah.
After 4,000 people attended, there were a number of companies that contacted me. They were saying like, "Hey, we loved what you produced. We are looking for people of color. We want to diversify our workforce. How can we be aligned with what you're currently doing?" And I was like, "Oh, great, because I need sponsors so I can pay people, and I know people that need jobs." So it then became a situation where I was like, "All right, we're going to throw this again in 6 months. I'm going to invite more people, and we're going to have a career fair, and we're going to have sponsors." Went from 13 people of color to 50 speakers. The 50 speakers were also followed by like title sponsorship from companies from IBM and like other companies like threw money at it, like Amazon, PayPal. And I think the second event we ended up raising 50,000. And again, more companies kept contacting me like, "Hey, we're loving the programming that you're doing. We feel like the conversations you're having are amazing." There are plenty of universities and students that are reaching out, "Hey, we love what you're doing." And we ended up doing it again this past year. Our hope was to do it in person because we thought with the vaccine, COVID numbers would drop far enough, but it's Texas and Texas doesn't care about anything. So Texas hit stage 5 for COVID in November and didn't drop from stage 5 until after the conference. I think they were saying something crazy like 1 in 3 people in Austin had COVID for like months. It was bananas, and folks were still out at restaurants eating, no mask, just raw dogging air and life, like did nothing.
Mess with Texas, bro. This is me.
They just didn't care. They just did not
care. We're gonna be all right.
Yeah. Everybody just walking around, God's in control, and like taking 2 steps and feeling over. It was just bananas. But like we tried to plan something that would be in person. The theme for this year was the family reunion, and it was probably the most stressful time I've had trying to put it together, just due to that very fact of I don't know if the numbers are going to come down and yada yada yada. So we ended up having to make this one virtual as well. But it was also awesome. It was amazing to be able to share a virtual stage with Nikki Giovanni. It was amazing to have Jelani Cobb, who is such a well-known activist and journalist. Designers that I really respect, like Kevin Bethune, Sekou Cook, Dr. Edwards. If you're not familiar, Dr. Edwards is one of the only Black men who designed several pairs of Jordan sneakers. And then on top of that, has reopened HBCU in Detroit. That's going to be a design focus. This man's like CV is just longer than a giraffe neck. Like it's really ridiculous. So for me, especially considering when I went to college, the college I went to was Cleveland Institute of Art. When I started, there were 5 Black people in that program. And when I walked across the stage for my degree, I was the only Black male walking across the stage for the entire 5-year program. and there was one Black female for the entire 5-year program. So for me, being in, you know, that space where it's like I'm studying, but I don't see anybody who looks like me, and then being able to share a virtual stage where it's like 50, 60 of us, and we're all talking about pretty impressive things that they're doing in industry. It always feels like a revival whenever we're in that space.
Very nice, man. I got somebody for you. Somebody for your next one for sure. He's a very up and coming designer that's grown like ridiculously in the last couple of years. I just shot
my way. Yeah.
And he's doing amazing things, man. He really is. He was one of the main he has been one of the main now designers, I guess you could say, and stylists for the Grammys, NAACP awards, mostly all the main award shows. So all the celebrities go to him, and he designs out based on certain things and whatever for whatever major companies and yada yada, as well as his own company, and very, very, very impressive. Shout out to Just 10 for sure. I met him in France, and we kind of been rocking ever since. So talented guy, man. But cool, man. So yeah, I'm curious. So tell us, I should say, a little bit about just I guess we'll get into it. Your experience, especially on the African American side of things, in the creative arts, how you feel it's been. Have we grown? Has it kind of stayed stagnant? So forth. I mean, we're in this weird post-pandemic era right now. For me personally, in my experience, it's growing. It's been very interesting in what's happening. I'm seeing African American artists come up in everything from illustration. I mean, we've always been in comic books and all those kinds of things for some time. There's been some companies and so forth, but to see us come up in animation itself and our own animated shows coming out, all these Kickstarters popping off and making millions of dollars and creating our own shows and, you know, things like that, to, of course, filmmakers, Ryan Coogler and all these other people coming out and all these different things. And, you know, I see the creative arts for us growing and our voices being put out in interesting ways. I also see this kind of goofy woke culture where we're being shoehorned into things that I think are not helping us as creatives and so forth. So I'm just curious your take on all of that, especially for the academic level and what you're seeing in professional, especially with these conventions you're putting together, seminars. Which give us a little bit of your take on it.
I think opportunities are growing. I think people are realizing that there is a lot to be gained with the Black dollar, and I think people of color are also beginning to realize that they can invest in their own and get a certain amount of quality, a certain type of quality. And I think that behooves us. I don't think there's anything wrong with woke culture in general, per se. I think Black people aren't a monolith, so there are people that subscribe to it, people don't. One thing I've always respected about my relationship with Robert is that whenever people ask about me and Robert in general, I always say, you know, it's funny because we're both very, very opposite in a lot of things, but we get along so well. Like politically, we're the complete opposite. In terms of frame and build, we're the complete opposite. Rob has all this hair. I'm follically challenged.
You just haven't tried hard enough. That's all, man. You try a little bit harder. It's cool.
No, man. I tell people all the time, my hairline looks like a cul-de-sac. It looks like a gated community. If I tried to grow it out.
You see me back here, bro? I got you.
Listen, I tell everybody the same thing, man. The way you grow hair fast, you just take your thumb and pops right out every time.
I wish it'd be snot that would all come out. But I think with that said, like there should be room and space for Black people to be what authentically Black means to them. So if Robert has his own philosophy on things and his own perspective, his philosophy and perspectives aren't directly harming me. So I should respect and promote his freedom to do so. For me, I think it's tough for us as Blacks whenever we start like policing other people's Blackness, like you're too woke or you're not woke enough, and like all of this other stuff. Like that's the part that becomes toxic. But I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with wokeness on its own. Yeah. I'm not slapping pork out of anybody's hand or anything like that.
Hey, we talked a little bit about it in the last episode towards
Yeah.
the end. And I went on a little rant again, but you know, I got some feelings for it towards Hollywood and some of the stuff that's going on. Man, it's mainly just Hollywood. I can't really say I'm seeing it. I mean, a few other little places, but really mainly Hollywood. And there's obvious reasons for why that is, but you know, I hate to see when they're taking. I mean, right now it's kind of goofy in general because they're trying to replace the system and how Hollywood runs with IP and all this other kind of stuff and just stuff I've seen in the film industry, and they're trying to revamp it so the studios have this ridiculously monopoly control and yada yada yada. But where I see it with especially African Americans and Black people is my one concern, and I guess this kind of falls a little across the board in entertainment, is that it's like they're sitting here kind of going, hey, we have whatever project, whatever thing we're doing, and it was really based for this person, you know, this ethnicity and so forth. But, you know, Black is in right now. Let's get woke, people. So let's throw this guy in there, right? And then it pisses a bunch of people off because it's like, wait a minute, James Bond isn't, you know, or whatever the case, and Lord of the Rings and all these kinds of things. And my thing with that is just like, well, the amount of money that you guys are putting into all this stuff, you could have allocated that over to Black professionals, all this talent that's out here, writers, whatever, so forth. I'm not just saying Black, or, you know, Asian, whatever, cultures, Latino, whatever, and created how many other things, right? Instead of trying to shoehorn something in that doesn't work, so you can say we're down and we want that money. You know what I mean? And I got a little problem with that sometimes because it's almost a slap in the face, in my opinion. It's a slap in the face to, and once again, not just movies, but this kind of starts to cross over to a couple different things. And once again, I feel this is a little bit of a slap in the face because it's like all this money that you guys are putting into this, you could have allocated half of that, third of that, whatever, to something, this writer, this to create something new that really is for us. And so it tells us, okay, you don't really care about us, you just want our money.
I mean, yes and no. I mean, I think one of my perspectives on Hollywood in general is it doesn't really care about anything but green. But
True.
And I think if you don't care about anything else but green, you typically tend to take a lot of like exploitative means to get things done. But the thing that I would say in many cases is like they could do both at the same time. In my opinion, like if they want to change a character to make that person Black, female, whatever the case may be, go ahead. I think there are benefits to that. Like there are kids that'll see that and, you know, will ultimately be encouraged by that. Especially, I don't know if you guys, and this is my internal academic going at the same time, but if you guys remember back to the 1960s, during the Brown versus Board of Ed trial where they were combating the segregation and Jim Crow laws, they used the doll test as a measure to talk about how white supremacy was impacting kids, and they were talking about how all of these images that they were seeing were popping up these Eurocentric ideas and ideals that were telling people that anything good was white and anything Black was bad, and a lot of that is based off of visuals that people see. Correct. So for me, if they make a Black Spider-Man, it's not a slap in the face. In reality, there were Black people when the initial Spider-Man was making. It's more a slap in the face keeping the characters white. Whenever people are talking about characters like James Bond isn't real. And if we're talking about like IP and character swaps, there was an entire movie, God of Egypt, where the entire cast minus Chadwick Boseman were white people. They weren't Egyptian, they weren't African, like they were white. How many movies did Ben Affleck play a Hispanic person or a person of color that they rebranded as a white person for the sake of the movie? How many movies has Jennifer Lopez done where she's played somebody white versus playing somebody Puerto Rican? And it's like the only time people really get upset is when they're actually switching the characters to be Black. And for me, that doesn't make sense. If we're going to be mad about the mixture of the switch of representation. Like, we have to be consistent with it. We have to be mad when they're switching characters from a person of color to a white person. We have to be mad, you know, whenever the people that are creating and the movies that are being made are pouring money into stories that weren't really, you know, they were racist in origin. Alan Moore was a world famous comic book artist. He's done comic books for like Daredevil and a bunch of other things. In an interview, actually stated that his firm belief is that the idea of superheroes stem from the idea of a master race, a very white supremacist idea of a master race. So when you think of Captain America, who was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed gentleman who became a super soldier to fight in World War I, while his first appearance was him punching Hitler in the face, the very ideology that built Captain America wasn't too far off from the ideology that Hitler had. And that was also commentary in the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show, where the idea of wanting to become a superhero is supremacist ideology within itself. So for me, I think we get too, and maybe this is the inner wokeness coming out and speaking, but I think we get too hung up on like, why they got to make Superman black, or why they got to do this, or why they got to do that. When in reality, the ideology that built these superheroes in the first place was problematic. I often rant about how I think Batman is trash. Like, how many people would feel comfortable with Elon Musk or Donald Trump or Mark Zuckerberg taking kung fu lessons and then driving through the projects in their local city, like beating up poor people, versus using their money like in other more productive ways? Yeah, I'm ranting now, but like,
yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah,
I 100% agree, man. 100% agree.
Other things
I definitely on the Batman is trash bandwagon.
Yeah, I just feel, you know, these stories are being told over and over and over again. That's Hollywood, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many opportunities. Funny, going back to Will Smith. Here's a deep cut. A lot of y'all don't know, especially because of me being in Philly and being a little bit in the film industry. So there was a point Will Smith was diehard trying to make a movie about a very famous Egyptian pharaoh that fought off the Romans for like 5 years or something like that, or longer like that. And like even like Jada was pointed, this was years ago, pointed to be his wife in the film, and then, you know, whole family affair and that kind of thing. And it was supposed to be the first film that he featured Jaden. And he was hard trying to get that Jaden.
Okay, I didn't know if you were saying Jada. I didn't know if you were saying Jada or Jaden.
Possibly Miles Morales. I don't know. Anyway,
yeah, we'll see.
But I remember that it was a hard push for that, because there was like all these things coming up for extras in Philly and all this other stuff, and he was trying to get a studio built in Philly back then too. The reason he can get the studio built was more of a Philly thing. That's a whole nother story. It's like the unions used to be owned by the mob and blah blah blah. But Hollywood did everything they could to push that down, just like they did a whole bunch of other films based on Black historical iconic characters and heroic characters, especially. George Lucas tells a big thing about that, and we was trying to make the movie about Tuskegee Airmen and all that kind of stuff, and all the pushback he got with that. So yeah, it's something that's been going on for years, and you know, this is my own personal thing towards it and rant, but it's just, I really hope and wish it gets to a point more, you know, whatever they're doing with the franchise stuff, whatever. But I hope it just gets to a point where they allocate more funds, more interest, more money into films, not just Black, but just different ethnicities across the board that are telling their stories, their history, and so forth. And I'm just a very much big advocate right for Africa, because there's so much African folklore, stories, historical figures, you know, Masumia and all these other things that have been trying to get made for some time. I believe Ryan Coogler is going to get Masumia made and some other stuff, but you know, it's been a struggle. It's been all this BS, you know, to why they can't get it done. And you know, it's sad, because how many Vikings and Romans are we going to see?
Yeah. what really bugs me is because other places are doing new characters so well. When you look at what's happening in manga and anime, they're doing new characters all the time. You know, the whole My Hero Academia
Granted, it
crew,
can't make a good remake movie, but I'm just saying.
not the live action stuff. That stuff's trash. But yeah, but you know, My Hero Academia, Attack on Titan, you know, Shield Hero, like all these different stories, like a whole genre story, like an isekai is like a whole different genre story that's just they're doing new stuff. And I would really love for us to be creating things that are for us that are new without relying on, you know, these IPs that didn't have anything to do with us in the first place. We're just being kind of shoehorned in there in a way that I don't think is necessary. You know what I mean? There's a lot of new stories to be told.
Yeah, I don't want to stick on
being told. I mean, I think they're being told. Maybe not as much. I think they're being told at a much higher rate than they've ever been told before.
That may be true.
Right now we're in the golden era of television, in my opinion. As far as Black people are concerned, you have Issa Rae, who's Insecure was amazing. Black Lady Sketch Show she produced, and gave birth. Not gave birth, but made way for Quinta to then turn around and do Abbott Elementary, which also highlights, you know, not just the plight of being a teacher in the inner city community, but also Philly culture. You have Atlanta. You have Shonda Rhimes that's been doing her thing for as long as she's been doing it. I mean, you have Ryan Coogler that's opening his own business. You have, yeah. I think the one thing that I do want to say that as Black people we have to be conscious of too is like when we're talking about telling African stories, the same way that we're saying that we want, you know, Hollywood to recognize Black talent and give way or invest in Black communities. When it comes to telling African stories, I feel like we also have to make room for African talent, African storytellers, or we just end up doing the same thing that's been done to us, where we're appropriating somebody else's culture. Because realistically, while we may be a part of the diaspora, a lot of the stories and folklore that we're talking about isn't ours; it's theirs. They should be a part of that narrative and storytelling, or we're just exploiting their history, which would be just as unfair.
Accuse them of. Yeah, that's true. What have you heard of Niobe? That's a comic book that's come out somewhat recently. So basically a Black elf. It's actually really cool. The artwork is amazing. So that's something I've had my eye on. But that's a new story that looks really interesting to me.
Yeah, I haven't got a chance to check it out yet. I've been too busy to buy and read new mangas or comic books, but what I've been doing is listening to people talk about them on YouTube in the car. So like I'm familiar with what some folks are listening to, but I need time to like float through pages myself.
I feel you. Yeah, man. Yeah, I think, you know, I guess the last I'll say about this one, you know, streaming I think will be interesting to how that goes in the last couple of years. You know, what you're seeing in Netflix right now, especially, is that Netflix is almost completely foreign in everything that they're showing right now. And a lot of that is because Netflix got all the viewers that they can pretty much, you know, scramble in America. So now they got to look to overseas to get new subscribers. So hence they're focusing on overseas for their films and so forth. Hence how we get what's the Korean, the big boy games, help me.
Are you talking about Hideo Kojima or what? Korean?
It's like the biggest show now. What are you talking about?
Oh, you're talking about I know what you're talking about. Squid Game.
Thank you. Squid Games.
Squid Game.
To everything else that's coming. I mean, Netflix has got so much now. I think you will start to see more of that with the other streaming services as well that are competing: Paramount, HBO Max, all that kind of stuff. Disney. I think once they can get all the subscribers they can get in America, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to have no choice but to start crossing overseas to get more subscribers. So therefore, they're going to start producing and putting more money into, you know, those types of films. So, you know, I think that the future is bright for everything, so forth, as long as nothing else crazy happens in entertainment and creatives, period. Now, if I may ask, because you come from a graphic design background as well. Explain a little bit, talk a little bit about just because once again, this is not just a show for photography. I know we're two photographers and videographers on here, but we like to also, you know, try and express as much as we can the other forms of photography work. I'm sorry, of creative work. So tell a little bit about just some of the graphic design, illustration, some of the things that you're seeing in that industry, and for people wanting to get into that more and so forth.
Yeah. So as a so whenever people traditionally think of graphic design, they typically think about like advertising. They think of identity design work. So like logos, packaging, like anything that has anything to do with consumption, consumed content is typically designed. The prescription bottles that you pick up from your pharmacy, that tells you how to take these prescriptions is designed. The interface in your car, if you have a smart car, the GPS system, somebody actually has to design that. So from what I've been seeing in industry, there's been a really big push for design research and a really big push for UX UI design. UX UI typically deals with user interfaces and user experience. So what is it like once you've actually begin using a website, begin using a new device? I typically try to teach my students to think a few years in advance, just because technology often dictate how the types of interfaces that designers have to design for, or the types of technology that our designs will have to interact with. So, for example, there was a gentleman. There's a gentleman a couple of years ago who decided that every time he went to get a colonoscopy, an X-ray, or anything like that, that he was actually going to store all of the footage and build a 3D rendering of his body, his internal body. And he actually mapped out his entire system and ultimately shared this with a doctor before he had to undergo surgery. And the doctor that he shared it with felt that this was something that would be amazing for all doctors to have. So then with my students, I often talk to them about, okay, if this becomes an interface, how do we then communicate necessary material that the doctor will need outside of just the visual of seeing the body? So if the doctor needs to know the heart rate, blood pressure, all of these other things, that's content that's going to have to be communicated to him utilizing design principles. How do we then prepare for that? If we look at clothing, they're beginning to manufacture smart clothing. So they're jackets that you can wear now that could don't have to be as bulky, but can keep you warm and cold weather. You can moderate your temperature in the car, in the jacket, or in the clothing the same way that you would your house. But if that's the case, how do you then train your students to use design principles to communicate the functionality on that item? And realistically, when we think about the things that we have to interact with now, it's really crazy. When I was in high school, not even high school, when I was a freshman in college and I had my flip phone, if you told me that they would come out with a phone that I'd be able to listen to music, do GPS stuff on, check my bank account statements, send emails, all of this other stuff, I wouldn't believe you. If you then told me that 10, 15 years after that, there would be a watch where I could do all of that same stuff, I would think that you were crazy, or that you were smoking, or that, there are phones now that come with plugins that can, do monitor your heart rate and do like all of this other stuff. Like it's bananas what technology is doing. But from a design standpoint, I think designers that are interested in jumping into the field should be prepared, or be really interested in where technology is growing, and then thinking about, how design has traditionally been done and how they can leverage that for future evolutions. Yeah. Because realistically, we watch TV has changed so much. I remember when I would go to my grandmother's house and we'd watch TV on her fatback television. You'd have to like turn the dial just to go from one channel to the next. And after a certain time, that was it. There's no more TV. Now you have these Rokus and smart televisions, and every screen is somebody designed that. Every screen, every button that you push, every transition, like someone actually thought that through and had to design that, because people are interacting with so many things in so many different ways than they had to before.
Agreed, man. Yeah, people don't realize how deep design goes. I think when people think design, they only tend to think advertisement. They don't realize, like, dude, I mean, from when you turn on your computer interface, when you go to any kind of website, you go to the interface on your phone, iOS, everything. It's all designed. Like someone had to design that out, So yeah, it goes very, very deep. I definitely agree, man. So from your conference, and you have a lot of different interesting creatives kind of coming on to talk and so forth. What has been some of the interesting things you think you've seen, or the most prominent things, I guess you could say, in the last, I don't know, this post-pandemic era? Like everything's changed. It's crazy in just the last couple of years, man. Where do you see a lot of the focus, I guess you could say, going for, not just African Americans, but creatives in period? Where do you see some of the most interest in whether it's college and academics, as far as kids going to school for it, or just in the field in general? What do you see the most prominent in creative fields?
I mean, I think the thing about creative fields, I'm going to make a Jay-Z quote. There was an interview that Jay-Z did a couple of years ago with the Breakfast Club, and he was talking about when he knew that members of Rockefeller weren't going to make it. And he was talking about it being, I think, the summer before 50 Cent's album dropped. And he was telling all the people on Rockefeller, like, you guys don't understand, like 50 Cent is coming. Like, it's going to happen, and he's going to blow. Like, there's this window right now. You have this time until his album comes out, so that you can actually flood the streets and flood the market with your work, and take up as much time as you can, to make as much as you can during this window. Because once he comes out, if you're not in front of the rock and you're behind it, it's going to be that much harder to get back in front of it. I would say the biggest thing that I've noticed is it's that time for a lot of creatives. This pandemic has locked a lot of people down, and there's so many opportunities that you can access from your home. There's so many things that you can learn, so many universities and institutions that are allowing you to get degrees from home, so many programs, certificates that you can do from your computer, so many things that you can do to improve yourself and make opportunities for yourself. But once that pandemic is done, and things go back to some semblance of normalcy, you're not going to have the same level of time. You're not going to have companies making the same commitments or the same level of flexibility. So the thing that I'm noticing right now, that I'm trying to tell a lot of people, get in front of that rock and stay in front of it as long as you can, because once it rolls past you, you're not going to catch it, or it's going to be a lot harder for you to catch it than it would have been if you took advantage of the time that you have now.
Yeah, I agree. That's something that I watch a lot of Gary Vee, and he kind of says the same thing about how social media is going, getting in front of where the attention is, because it's still young. It's still there's still a lot of growth that's going to happen. People making content for TikTok, making even in the NFT space, like all these spaces are still in their infancy. But they're not going to be there forever. You know what I mean? They're going to get saturated, and it's going to be much harder to get a foothold once they're truly saturated, and once the market is full. And we don't know where the next new thing is going to be, or if there's going to be a next new thing, or how that's going to happen. So yeah, definitely that ball is rolling, and it's coming for a lot of people. Even for photographers and stuff, we thought our big digital cameras were going to be the be all end all, but these cell phones are coming for us.
Bruh.
You know what I mean? This is going to change everything. You know what I mean? There will be a day when you go to a wedding and somebody will be paid thousands of dollars to pull one of these out to shoot.
Not an Android, it's going to be an iPhone.
I don't know, bro.
I'll say this. I think one thing in just that innovation, I think is going to be a big thing on drones and AI, as far as just artificial intelligence that does from whatever editing. And so like it's getting so advanced now, to the point that it's like I don't even care how good of an editor you or whatever you are, illustrator, whatever, like the program, the algorithm can do it just as well, if not better and faster. So it's it's a wild world, man. But yeah, I agree, dude, 100% with everything that you said. Getting ahead of the curve in a nutshell. I definitely 100% agree, man. Um, I agree. It's so much out here. There now is for creative, I think is one of the most interesting times for someone. I remember you had mentioned before being a bit of an introvert.
Mhm.
I think it's a little easier in some sense because of the internet, and you don't have to be in necessarily present, so to speak, in populace or crowd or whatever to make something happen. But at the same time, I think that it's a time where you gotta really hustle in a sense, but the hustle is thinking outside the box, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is can be difficult. It can be difficult, especially depending your background, where you're at. You live in Bumble F Town, wherever. It can be difficult sometimes to get on whatever's new or whatever's popping and what's on its way and so forth. So I think it's just so important to do research as a part of what you do and everything else and really try and expand yourself and find what's happening and jump on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was the benefit of growing up in New York City. It's like everybody is hustling. Everybody's hustling at all times. It's I mean, I think I joke all the time and I tell people that New York City is a very toxic city to be in. Cost of living is ridiculous. Taxes are ridiculous. The spaces you live in are extremely small and cramped. The weather is shit.
I live in Philly. I'm 2 hours away.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. It's shit. It's dirty. It smells like it's home. I love it, but people don't realize like how gritty and hardened it makes you. And I'm not saying hardened in terms of like hardened criminals or thugs, like you going around and you're slapping people, like nothing like that. Shout out to Will Smith. What I mean is, what I mean hardened to the extent that um, you are about your business.
It's a
I
hustle,
thought,
bro. It make a
yeah,
hustle out of you. Make a hustler.
it'll make a hustle out of you. When I was going to high school, I went to art and design high school, which was a prominent art school. It was an hour and a half commute from where we lived. So that meant I had to leave my house from 5:45 in the morning at like 14:15 just to get to school by 7:38ish. Um, that's the dedication. I did that for 4 years. Where'd you go?
I'll be back.
His Sony camera overheated again.
Sony's, man. I'll be back.
But yeah, no, it's like it's for me to do that at 14:15, like that's a level of dedication that a lot of people don't have to deal with. It's like being on the train, you bump into a bunch of people in New York that are trying to make money in any way they can, like selling batteries, selling candy. I would jokingly call them some of the folks the Guinea Force. They'd hop on in like a team and like do a dance routine and like ask people for donations. But everybody in New York was trying to hustle to that's what's up, Omar. I know all about Brooklyn Tech. I had a couple friends that went there. Everybody in New York experienced some semblance of hustling. And the thing about it, while you're in New York, is everybody else is trying to make it just like you're trying to make it. So if you're lazy on your hustle, if you don't have a certain dedication, you won't make it. So New York is very much like a very you eat what you kill type of city. But if you don't get out to hunt, somebody else is gonna hunt and kill what you could have eaten. So it's like you have to stay on your grind consistently, and that's kind of what's motivated me since. I don't live in New York, but I've always maintained that mentality. It's like I have to stay in front of the ball, because if I'm behind it, I don't know when my next meal is gonna come.
Yeah, it's funny. All the major main cities for entertainment are almost that. From New York, LA. LA is the same way. It's a little bit of a different vibe, for sure, but it's still that hustle type of mentality. It's just a little
Chicago
bit
is similar.
way. Chicago's a little bit like that.
Yep, I remember.
Miami is definitely like that. So yeah, it kind of goes with all the major tourist attraction cities and entertainment cities and so forth. It's just that hustle to make it. And so many towns is breeded out of that. You know, needless to say, if you come from a small town, some of us are watching from a small town. You know, give you an example. I'm from Philly. Philly's not exactly a small town, but we're always on the coattails of New York, right? Because we're 2 hours away. We're super close and all this other stuff with this major city that kind of gets shrouded by New York, but has its own weird thing with it as well. But, you know, and yeah, it's always, I remember, and I lived in New York for a little while. I lived towards like Greensboro, Brooklyn. And when I remember when I first moved there and I was doing my internship there and so forth, like fresh out of college. And like, yeah, the hustle was just so different. You know what I mean? And I thought I was hustling hard in Philly. Got to New York, was like, nah, bro. Like, you ain't even close. So yeah, it's
like I also love the energy of Philly too. Because I know Philly's 2 hours away from New York, but it's like every time I've been to Philly, it like, I don't know, it feels like Philly, New Jersey, DC, and New York. It's like they grew up in the same house. And Philly has this like, it's almost like New York City has been given favoritism by whoever raised these cities. And Philly's just like, man, fuck y'all. Like I'm tired of y'all talking about New York. And I'm tired of commercial treatment.
Kind of how Philly is.
Yeah. But
I mean, yeah, Philly's been homegrown to a lot of things, man, especially in music, art, and especially in music. Like, you know, so many people don't realize most of the musicians. This is a funny thing I always tell people. I said, watch the Grammys, right? Watch the Grammys, watch any major award show, artists, whatever, Justin Timberlake, or, you know, whatever's just doing major tours all the time. And you see this big band behind them, and most of them dudes from Philly. Like, majority of top musicians come from Philly. It's a very interesting thing. It's a very weird thing. New Jersey too, a little bit. And then, I think sometimes with the smaller cities, doesn't matter where you're at. I don't care if you're like a Detroit on the coast of Chicago, you're a Philly on the coast of New York, you're wherever other city close to whatever other major city is happening. It's this weird thing where it's like they have their spurts of popularity, of things happening, of genres, and whatever it is, in all forms of art. And then they kind of disappear real fast. And then something else kind of sparks up for a little while and disappears again, right? Like Philly had neo soul for a real big thing. Like, and that was a whole thing. And I miss that era sometimes, I swear. And then it just, and I think a lot of times it's because they're working class cities. So the working class cities can never really get over the hump to be the art cities the way that the main art cities are. So they always like, they get a little flourish and they kind of flutter out. And, just it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I miss the music. I mean, I miss the neo soul era as well.
Gotta miss it.
It's because Music Soul Child started rapping. Everybody was like, "Nah, we done." As soon as he tried that venture, everybody was like, "Nah, I'm good."
That was how I got my start, man. Right out of college, that was mainly when like most of my film stuff happened, and I was shooting a lot of. I shot for Jill Scott and a lot of different artists, and like that neo soul wave brought a lot of work into Philly and creatives in so many ways, and then it just just fluttered out.
I believe it.
Pittsburgh had his little too, right? Pittsburgh's had a few.
So I haven't been here long enough to have experienced a lot of this stuff, man. Like, I moved around so much, like a lot of this stuff, I'm never in the place that the thing is happening while it's happening. I might get there before, I might get there after, never during the time.
Man, I did not like Pittsburgh. I like Philly. I feel like you could throw the rest of the state away. Jeez. Pittsburgh has its own trauma and like its own weird way. Like if Drake's song "No New Friends," like the hook was a city, it would be Pittsburgh. It's like there's so few opportunities. There's so poor relationships between race relations, class relations, that people are afraid to build new relationships with people that are foreign to the city. The
There's
way
a lot
that
of that.
Yeah, the way that the city is laid out, I often joke and say that whoever was the urban planner who laid out the city must have gone through a really bad divorce. One spouse got the city, and the other person was like, "I'm gonna make your commute as hard as possible." Because nothing makes sense. Nothing makes
Nah,
sense.
Well, it's a
well,
valley, right?
yeah,
Pittsburgh sits in a valley.
it's because of the terrain, a lot of it, you know what I mean? So there's no grid like there is in a lot of the major cities. And Pittsburgh is, I mean, it's just it's a really weird vibe. Like again, I did not grow up here. So, I came into this city and I don't really pay attention to the drama that happens, that's kind of in the city. I know a little bit about it. Like I see what's happening, like a lot of gentrification that's happening here, a lot of the things that they're trying to do to destroy some of the historically Black neighborhoods and the areas of the city that are great locations, but they're full of the wrong people, the people that they don't want there, so they can't make any money off of these locations, and they're doing their best to move them out. And it's a big ordeal. So that's a whole thing that's happening here in Pittsburgh, and it's really segregated, and there's it's a very, very strange vibe that's in Pittsburgh.
But y'all got like this weird technology boost in Pittsburgh because you got Google Maps there and all this other stuff. So like you guys got self-driving cars and Ubers. Remember when I was there the first time?
Right. What's crazy is,
what's that car? And he was like, oh yeah, it drives itself. I'm like, what?
The cars that the dude was in the passenger seat and there was nobody. Yeah, you know what, this is crazy because there's not a lot of that going on right now either. Like there's the self-driving cars, the Google cars and stuff like that. I don't see those anymore. That's not really like
experiment, I guess.
Well, yeah, I think Uber was experimenting here a lot because of the way the terrain is, trying to be good at the geolocation. Because when you get into downtown, it used to be like, I don't usually have this problem anymore, but it used to be when you went through downtown, your GPS just wigged out. Like it's just, I don't know where I am. You're at least 4 miles away from where you think you are, because it did not enjoy downtown. It doesn't do that so much anymore that I've noticed. This hasn't been a problem. So they may have worked those bugs out.
Yeah, and then on top of that, Pittsburgh is also, Pittsburgh has, I don't want to say always, but has on several occasions been ranked as like one of the top 10 worst cities to raise a Black family in.
Yes.
So,
Yep. One of the worst cities for raising a Black family. One of the worst cities for Black women. One of the worst cities for it's just not a good place. Apparently, it's not a good place to be Black.
That.
Yeah, it's
so
bad.
Like
like
black and yellow.
yeah.
And it's weird for me because I don't generally have those type of experiences with places. Like I just it doesn't happen to me the same way that it happens to a lot of people. So a lot of people's experience is a lot different than the one that I had. So when people say this stuff, I'm like, really?
Well, I mean,
I didn't know.
You guys are like so on the cusp of Midwest. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? You're so close to Ohio and everything else. And like once you get to Midwest, you see the segregation thing's very interesting out there. I mean, it's interesting on the northeast side too, and where we're at in Philly, and there's a very upper class, but it's still a little bit different. But I noticed when you get to Midwest, it's very.
Dude, when I lived in Chicago is the most segregated place I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah,
I've never experienced.
I grew up in Chicago to an extent.
Yeah, I've never experienced anything like riding the red line from one side of the city to the other. It's jarring. Like you get on the red line and you just see, like if you start on State Street and you just start riding through downtown, it's pretty diverse. Like you just see people, you see more white people than Black people, but it's diverse. As soon as you pass wherever the White Sox stadium is, as soon as you pass that's stadium,
the South Side. As soon as you pass the White Sox, you're on the South Side.
Yep. As soon as you pass that, literally that stop, there are no white people, none at all. And as soon as you pass there is when it happened. The New York thing happens when everybody gets on and starts selling stuff. And so they walk on the bus and they start selling shoes and toothpaste and candy and socks and all kinds of stuff. And I've never seen anything that jarring in my life.
Yeah, I don't know. Chicago's changed a lot too, though. Like it's still the because a lot of stuff's getting regentrified and all the other stuff.
Mm.
So you still got the South. So South Side and West Side are like the hood sides and all the stuff you hear about Chirac and all those crazy stuff, the gangs. And they have a lot of gangs.
They do.
It is what it is out there. But it is very segregated where like you'll go at like this and all the way down is Latino and all this and all the way down is black. It is like that. But Chicago has this weird thing now where it has, because it's such a weird big city, it has a very large surrounding suburb. This like outer crust suburb that's still kind of part of the city in a weird way before you get like way out to the country and stuff. And that's all mixed. It's completely mixed.
Yeah, like Schaumburg was pretty like that. I lived in Schaumburg for a while, and you see a little bit of everything out there, and it's
South of John Harville says sounds like L.A., but you could get shoot being in the wrong color. No, Chicago's the same way. Chicago is. Chicago, honestly, I'll say Chicago's worse than L.A. L.A. simmered down a lot. This gang culture and all is still out there in L.A. and everything else, and certain areas. But it's calmed down a lot. You could be certain wherever, and like you ain't going. You could be in Compton and necessarily wearing the wrong color, and just like I ain't from here, and like
they'll be like, all right,
you know what I mean. But like Chicago, you in the wrong spot, and you ain't looking like you belong there. No, bro.
I had that run in more than once. So I remember in Halloween, I saw almost somebody get tossed off the red line while it was up high. Somebody almost got tossed off for not being in the right gang.
Yeah, and like I'm sorry.
Guys, I was also going to some b-boy event, and I was on the train, and these two dudes was sitting on the other side of the train, and they looked at me and they said something. I have no idea what they said, and I was like, nah, and they were like, you don't even know what I'm talking about, do you? And I'm like, this is obviously some gang stuff that I have no idea about. Please don't. Right. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm just going this way. But I was lucky. They were like, yeah, you don't even know what we're talking about. Like,
and like cool. Chicago's confusing with it because there's so many.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ones.
You got
Stones,
Crips and Blood,
GDs.
Stones, GB Set, CBI. Like it's a lot, man. So you be like, who to where? What? So yeah, it's interesting, man. I mean, around the country, it's so interesting. Some of the things you can get into. But one thing I can say for sure, and get back to the subject, no matter where you're at, no matter how hard it is, and so forth, you got an opportunity to be a creative and make money in your field and be in your field, almost anywhere.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
That I don't think has ever happened ever in the course I think of ever human history, where it's like. You really got an opportunity, no matter where you're at,
social media,
money, to make it happen, so forth, man. I think that's a beautiful thing in the end, and that's why we made this show. So hopefully, people can get insight in different ways and different methods and different people and just everything of how this can happen, man. So I'm saying all this to sum up a little bit because we're about at that 2 hour and some change mark.
Yep.
But I hope that this was helpful, guys. I hope Omari, once again, thank you so much, bro.
Where can people find you and what you do?
I'm on Instagram, Omari.Souza. You could hit me up at blackdesign@txstate.edu. Yeah, I think that's about it. No.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Right on. Bro, I cannot thank you enough, man. Me and Rob, thank you so much for coming on the show, bro.
100%.
This was awesome. This was awesome, man. I was like, all right, this show's gonna be design. We're gonna talk about this, and then we just went all over the place, man. That's a beautiful thing, I think. So thank you so much for hanging in there with us, man. I know sometimes 2 hours it can be a lot, bro, but
we appreciate your time for sure.
All right, y'all.
All right, so let me go ahead and take it easy.
Thank you, man. So once again, man, that'll wrap it up. That's the show, y'all. Want to thank everybody for tuning in, man. We had a good group this time. It was Josh, Omar, Jay, what's up, man? SDV, Chief Ron, Jay Harville. Who am I missing here? Who else was on here?
It was just Chief Ron. You said Omar.
Keo Arts. What's up, bro? Thank you so much for tuning in. Who we missing? BTBS, SMD Vision, Vox Effects. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and checking us out, man, and hanging in there with us. We so appreciate it, man. I cannot thank you enough. Hopefully, this was a good show and we gave some good information and shed light. What do you think? I think Omari did awesome, man. I think some of the stuff that he talked about and
very useful, very helpful.
For sure, man. And yeah, definitely check out Omari, guys. I'll be in Texas eventually. I got another person to come down to harass, like, hey, guy.
What's happening?
We're hanging out. He's like, how'd you get here? Don't worry about that, bro.
Yeah, thank you, Esquire, Black Sugar, the Black Tea Brown Sugar Network. Thank you.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in, man. Thank you so much. This was a good show, and let's keep it going. So the next show, I think we're going to do a little bit more of a tutorial, right?
Yeah, we're going to try and do a tutorial. Though I'm gonna holler at you. There may be somebody interesting that we could bring on. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, man. So let's keep it going, y'all. Keep doing the thing. And thank you for tuning in, guys. Let's keep this going. Once again, hit that subscribe button, hit those likes, no matter what.
Turn on your notifications.
Most definitely, guys. Let's get these subs up and everything else. So hopefully we can, we're looking to bring on some bigger guests and some other things and so forth. But we need to make sure they got a good audience, man. So keep checking in on us and everything else, guys. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's keep it going.
100%.